Good morning. Thank you all for joining us here. This is a particularly interesting panel because we're really talking about something about the future. I remember coming to the forum a few years ago, and we were initially talking about blockchain. And people were like, oh, this is such an obscure technology. You'll never have a big deal. All of a sudden, these digital pictures are selling for millions of dollars on your mobile devices, NFTs. And we're already talking about Web 3.0. So it's always great to have four outstanding leaders in this field where we'll be talking about 6G, really the next generation of, I would say, the infrastructure for the future. So what I will do is I will introduce the four speakers that we have, and then I'll be asking them any questions, and should you have any questions from the audience or virtually, don't be shy to reach out. So let me proceed. So let me begin with Matti. So Matti is a director for the 6G flagship program at Oulu, Finland, and serves as an academy professor in the University of Oulu, where he's worked on wireless communications research since the 1990s. He was a director of Center for Wireless Communication at the University of Oulu between 1998 and 2006, and the head of Department of Communication Engineering until 2014. Prior to joining at the CWC, Matti worked as a research engineer at Nokia mobile phones in Finland, and he is an alum of the University of Oulu, where he received his PhD in 1998. So welcome, Matti. Magnus is currently vice president and head of Ericsson's research since 2018. Magnus was research area director for network architecture and protocols at Ericsson Research from 2007 to 2018, with responsibility for driving long-term technology leadership research in the areas of network architecture and protocols comprising radio, transport, and core networks, including network management. Prior to joining Ericsson, he's had a number of key senior positions with the research and development and product management. Since joining Ericsson, focusing on 2G, 3G, 4G, and 5G technology, he holds 29 patents and is also he's also an alum of the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, Sweden. So welcome, Mikko. Also another outstanding researcher. He's head of research. He's head of the research department for the Wireless Advanced Technologies Lab at Nokia Bell Labs in Finland. Mikko is leading the European 6G flagship project hexax. He obtained a master's in engineering and a doctorate, all from Aalto University. Mikko has been a Nokia since 2000 with various roles, including principal researcher and head of international cooperation at Nokia Research. Mikko is a founding member of the Celtic Eureka and WWRF. The latter one he chaired from 2004 to 2006. And finally, we have Mike. So he's currently Vice President of Technology and Solutions at ATIS. We focuses on strategic initiatives to advance the ATIS's membership's business and technology priorities. He brings extensive telecommunications strategy experience and a service provider perspective. He provides ATIS direction on emerging technology trends as well as next generation technologies and networks. Before ATIS, he serves as director for standards at Verizon Technology and as a principal technologist in Verizon CTO's office. His extensive career with major service providers includes working in network planning engineering positions at Verizon and AT&T Bell Labs. He has also previously served on MoCA's board of directors and participated at FCC working groups. He is also an alum of the George Washington University and Johns Hopkins University. Gentlemen, outstanding CVs. So I think if there's one takeaway, if we're going to talk about technology and the future of the infrastructure, it would be you four. So let's begin. Let's start with I would say the most obvious question. What is 6G and why does it matter? Matti.
Well, until the early days of 5G, we were focusing mainly on personal mobile broadband connectivity. And now 5G started really a new era where we are trying to connect lots of different things and machines, processes to be wirelessly connected to the part of the information society. The gadgets are becoming affordable, efficient, both in terms of technical performance and energy efficiency. so that it's really becoming viable. So 5G started the journey, and it's going to be evolved towards some new features and characteristics, but that's not the end of the journey. Everybody wants to have more. We want to have better performing systems, reaching out even new domains that are not addressed by 5G. That's really what 6G is about. It's about massive automation and digitalization of society, besides serving as personal users, human users as mobile broadband platform.
Okay, great. And Mike, given your role leading strategic initiatives at ATIS, what do you think is the opportunity here?
Well, I think, as you think about 6G, of course, you can look back just a bit, and 4G was very much about mobile data, mobile video to your device. It had immediate traction in the marketplace. 5G was, I guess one way of looking at this, 5G was somewhat of a quantitative exercise because it began to look at the application of mobile technology to new areas, manufacturing, industrials, transportation, and you began to see the very stringent requirements around bandwidth and around latency and so on. So in some ways, it was undertaken a bit more at a quantitative level to basically deliver that level of performance. I think what we're seeing with 6G in general is as much more of a qualitative approach, in a sense, kind of creating a vision of how we would kind of view the marketplace, the game-changing applications and so on. And then kind of, obviously, we will work back to the laws of physics and numbers and KPIs and metrics, but I think we're just taking a different approach.
Well, Mike, just to push on that one point that you were saying about the vision, and I'll bring in the others. How does this really differ from 5G? Because, there was a panel, something similar to this we had like a few years ago, where we talked about the future of 5G. How does this differ from 5G then, that we're currently rolling out?
Yeah, from my perspective, it's much more, I think, about augmenting the human experience. So I think that would take us into many different areas. It certainly would take us into areas like, into healthcare. It would take us into new areas, I think, like agriculture. Certainly it'll touch entertainment, transportation, industrials, and so on. But I think the vision, I think we have to kind of disconnect the vision from kind of the pure technology development and application development aspects. So what are we really trying to achieve with 6G as a society, as a global society? And then I think we also have to reflect also on what are we trying to achieve at more of a regional or national level? What are the key things that reside at a national imperatives level that replicate or provide a view into our markets, our policies, our values. So I think that's much more around the approach of 6G and why we're really trying to start with vision as kind of the starting point and not the destination point.
Okay, great. So let's talk a little bit more about vision. I want to bring in Magnus and Mikko here. So I'm sure that we would all love to hear, what would you say sort of the vision with 6G coming out of Ericsson and Nokia? Maybe we can begin with you, Magnus.
Yeah, thanks. I think we will see next steps when it comes to digitalization. We are already now opening up for this. It's happening in all industries. Everybody is talking about creating the digital twins, and we are sort of talking about us humans being able to enter in virtual worlds, and we will have augmented reality. All of this is sort of the beginning. And I think the 6G vision is this, where we take this to a more you can call it to the extreme, or you can take it to a well smooth experience where we are having a digital world and a physical world, and we are able to move in this cyber-physical continuum. And the vision is really to provide, then, from an Ericsson perspective, to provide a connectivity platform that are able to synchronize these two worlds and facilitate all of these services that we will do when we are moving in between the digital and the physical world. And in order to do so, the 6G needs to have a significantly better performance when it comes to the connectivity pieces. But we also need to build in the robustness, resilience, so it's possible to make sure that these networks are up and running always under all conditions. We need to make it possible to confine your privacy so you can still enjoy these services without sort of giving out all facts about everything you do and see and hear and in your physical space, right? So there's a lot of much more, since this service will be much more immersive. I think the privacy questions are also much more significant to address. Then we talk a lot about the AI on top of these networks, all the applications that could automate a lot of different things. But we really need to make the network in itself able to learn and at scale. So that are also important aspects. And then I think that the connectivity and the compute need to be merged in some way. There needs to be compute very deeply integrated in the connectivity networks in order to provide the right platform for all of these very attractive services that we see in front of us. So the vision contains a lot of technology components here in order to bring that together into this intelligent network platform. And we believe that it will play a key role in the future cyber-physical continuum.
Okay, a lot to unpack there. Mikko, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so thank you for the invitation. So great to be here today. And in addition to representing Nokia Bell Labs, I'm also representing hexax, so the only European level 6G flagship project that is building the foundation for 6G, where we all European players here are part of. And in hexax, the 6G vision is that 6G should connect the three worlds. It should connect the human world, physical world, and digital world with the fabric of 6G key technology enablers. And here adding the human as the technology that we are doing is for humans. Of course, humans are also part of the physical world, and we need to be in balance with the physical world. All of this definitely needs to be sustainable. So 6G needs to be sustainable, and also we need to see how 6G could be used to make other sectors of society more sustainable. But then back to connecting these three worlds. So humans need to be in efficient connection with the physical world, with efficient human-machine interfaces. We need also the connection from humans to the digital world to build models of the human physiological operation, other functions. For example, then to do preventive healthcare, so detect heart attacks before they take place and proactively call for help, like already before a human might notice him or herself needing help. Then we need also the efficient connection between the physical and the digital world in order to be able to better design and plan, operate the physical world. Also here, the preventive maintenance, so detect problems before they take place. And all of this needs to be done, as said, sustainable. It needs to be trustworthy, as more and more also quite private information is getting wireless, gets digital. So we need to have this as a fundamental starting point for designing 6G, this trustworthiness, and also inclusive. Here, looking, for example, at the challenges of how to provide the connectivity to a wider amount of population on Earth. And related to this, in our work, as in many other 6G research projects, we are tying the targets to these United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Then, from like Nokia perspective, this is of course matching very much with the Nokia vision. And from Nokia point of view, we are also highlighting a bit more the role of 6G augmenting humans. So giving us additional opportunities to interact with each other, interact then with the machines, and helping the machines to understand us better and predict what we need better.
Okay. I'm a venture capital guy. So what I'm going to ask you, I'm going to do, I guess what we say in Quebec, like till the top, we're going to go around. So we heard like at the strategic level, and I would like to, at least for myself and for the audience, to go down to the specific use cases here. So I would ask each of you if you can provide like a specific use case that 6G would unlock. So granted, with all the caveats, the future is very uncertain. It may or may not happen. So with all of those caveats, but I guess what would be helpful is to hear some like a specific use case. So maybe Matti, maybe I can start with you. What would you see as like a specific use case that would that 6G would unlock as opposed to with existing architecture?
There are a huge amount of those. First of all, if you look at the technology development and needs for development, we need service continuity and global coverage, since we will depend on these digital services no matter where we are and who is the person in question. Secondly, we will be greatly improving capabilities in short-range connectivity, what we call these super efficient short-range connectivity solutions, enabling really amazing types of applications that no one can imagine today. But more important than trying to figure out which specific fields we will be deploying future 6G, I think it's important to note that in order to that make happening in the future, we have to understand that there will be new stakeholders that need to be taken aboard. There will be new business opportunities in multiple different fields of society. And those each will have different type of value chain stakeholders, value creation mechanisms, and so forth. And more importantly than that, each sector have their own regulatory regimes that we don't properly understand thoroughly yet. So it's really, we have to break down some barriers that we have still in the current, let's say, mobile ecosystems, and we have to be open enough to make it happen and open the doors for any possibilities that we don't even understand today.
Okay, Mike.
Well, let me, maybe before I offer kind of an application area, let me just make a quick analogy. I think if you think, for example, in the medical field about the advancement that MRIs brought over, traditional X-rays and so on, it really changed the entire, medical field in just a matter of a few years. And the reason was, we started off with the same biological environment, right, the human body, and that data always existed. But it wasn't available in kind of a flat display experience, right? You had to go through invasive measures. So I think in the same way, as we look ahead, the applications that we're talking about, which are really innovation platforms, are going to be, the compelling ones are going to be really built around kind of multi-sensory applications. So it's taking advantage of all the data that exists around us in many ways that today we're not tapping, ambient intelligence and so on, coming from everyday devices, and putting that together with context, putting it together with knowledge of the environment and applying that to cognitive processes. And so we can kind of ingest these applications from a human experience perspective, but based on much more predictive data is made available to us through many means. And I think this will unlock a whole area of new applications that will support healthcare, public safety, the whole entertainment business. There's so much there if we can basically experience that at a more of a multi-sensory level.
Okay, so it's a lot more than me just downloading my Netflix faster.
Yes, absolutely.
So Magnus, what would you say is a really interesting use case then for 6G?
Yeah, there are, as both Mike and Matti has been into here, there are so many possibilities and there are so many emerging ecosystems. And I think we are seeing now the big players are thinking that a lot of these things are investable, right? We see how Facebook is starting their significant investments in the metaverse, and we see that Microsoft is doing similar things with their plans and how to evolve with their platforms, etc. So, and this is all over, right? So I think there will be many opportunities here, and there is a lot of different technology components that will be needed. So, for example, if we were to look into the future of Internet of Senses, something where we will have much more immersive experiences. We will have the augmented reality glasses, we will have spatial audio, we will be able to have touch and feel transmitted over the network. There's already this jacket you can buy, so you can get a virtual hug, or you can have this artificial skin, so you can feel somebody else sort of touching your arm or something like that. All of these things are in the labs, and they are sort of getting gradually out here. So I think we can foresee that we will be able to have a much, much richer experience in our personal meetings. And you will be able to store these experiences, you can share these experiences, etc. So I think all the different technologies that would be needed in order to make that experience an excellent one. So there's many, many steps there that needs to be taken, and a lot of key technologies that need to develop, both within the networks, but mostly then, of course, on the device side and all the applications, etc. So that is to me a very interesting use case.
Okay, and Nico.
Yeah, I would actually like to continue a bit in the same direction with a bit different description. So this telepresence certainly is interesting and very demanding in terms of the overall connectivity needs, especially when many people in densely populated area are doing it at the same time. So thinking about a person or set of persons interacting with each other, independent, of course, of the location, and interacting with some physical objects and machines, and also interacting with some objects that might not exist in physical reality, in the physical world anywhere, but only as digital models. So this opens up, and then, of course, using all senses to the degree that it makes sense. So this opens up quite some new opportunities for some mixed reality co-design of testing in a very immersive way some things that don't exist yet anywhere as kind of really physically done things. And also one could think about many other ways for using this in the work environment or some cultural events, some games. You could be like embedded in the middle of a game anywhere in the field among the sports athletes or anywhere in the audience anywhere in the world during live events. Or, of course, quite some gaming opportunities.
Oh, that's really interesting, that last one, because we were looking, there was a company that was trying to, but I think they had technical constraints, where their value prop was that you could watch a game from any angle, even from the player's angle, and just live and be streaming. But the problem was, it was like the network capacity and such. So I guess one way to think about it, we heard with artificial intelligence, one of the key thing that unlocked a lot of the AI application was that processing power became a lot more powerful and a lot more cheaper. So it became this platform where we can finally take out what was written in the papers and actually apply them in real life. Or in quantum computers right now, like one company who invested in Xanadu, once they're able to construct their quantum computer, we can actually run the algorithms just currently in academic papers right now. So thank you for that, gentlemen. Interesting use cases. Let's talk about what the execution, the rollout of these of 6G will look like. What's really interesting is that there's been this kind of phenomenon of these coalitions that are forming. And I'm just curious, would love to hear more about this coalition. Maybe I can start with you, Miko. You talked about, hexax, hexax. I would love to hear about that, the European coalition.
Yes, so at European level, there is one 6G flagship project that aims to set the foundation for 6G. So define the vision and use cases and look at what kind of technologies would be essential in building up 6G and make some initial analysis that how far and how could we move forward with such technologies. So yes, in the project it's led by vendors, so Nokia and Ericsson And we have, of course, significant operators, technology providers, vertical perspective, and of course, high quality academia, such as University of Oulu, having ramped up before very significant internationally recognized activities on 6G, as well as then some high quality SMEs. We are a program running for 2.5 years, and we are publishing our latest results on our website.
And so, just to step back, what's the purpose of these coalitions? For example, why build a coalition in the first place? And I'll bring in Mike as well too. But would love to hear why bring in the coalitions in the first place.
So it is in this world of the cellular generations, we need to have devices in the world that work together. So that when Mike wants to build a network, so they can buy part of the hardware, for example, from Nokia, and part of it from Ericsson, and the hardware need to work together. And then you can go to a shop and buy your mobile phone from any manufacturer, and you can go and put your phone on, and it works in the network of Mike. So all of these different parts of the technology need to work together. So you need to standardize these, and then it is then good to come together early to have some pre-standardization to work to the benefit that in the end you have a globally one standard that is applied globally. And in this spirit of the need for standardization and one standard, it is beneficial for all globally in the long run to work together. And of course, there is also at this stage and increasingly towards the commercialization, there is increasing amount of competition. But this co-opetition is needed to kind of make everybody win in the long run.
Okay, Mike, there is also the another coalition, the Next G Alliance. Can you provide some thoughts there?
Sure. Well, the Next G Alliance was launched by ATIS. You do not have to be an ATIS member to join. So we've grown quickly from about 16 to about 70 members in the last year. I think the thing that's different about the Next G Alliance is we're taking a very holistic approach. So we're, again, many things we talked about just a few minutes ago around vision and so on. We believe that the way to approach this is really what we call kind of the research to realization. So you basically look across the whole life cycle of research, what's needed at this level, at this time frame for research, what should be the research priorities, the technology development areas, how does that translate into manufacturing and development? How does that translate into standards, into market readiness, and ultimately to commercializing the solution? So it's really tying all these elements together, which I think if we look back at maybe some of the lessons of 5G, these things were done independently, and they were done fairly late in the development cycle. The idea here is that basically the outcomes of each of these stages feed into the next, and we create really a direct tie between where we are today, which is basically these type of discussions and research, and where we end up, 8 to 10 years from now in terms of a commercial market.
Okay. Thank you for that. Mike, you also brought up an interesting point about, there were some lessons learned from 5G. It just feels like for those of us who aren't at the research level, at the strategic level, 5G is just starting to roll out. Starting to roll out right now. So maybe I can bring in, for example, Magnus, what are the lessons from the 5G rollout that we should make sure that we carry over as we start thinking about 6G and begin planning for the rollout?
I guess the generation shifts has a lot in common. So going from 3G to 4G, 4G to 5G, and 5G to 6G will have a lot in common. But there are also new things adding on to this process. And I think we saw now going from 4G to 5G, we learned the importance of the migration. So you can actually use your same spectrum band for 4G and 5G at the same time. And by that, you can make a much smoother transition from 4G to 5G. I think this is a requirement that will come to stay. So I think we will have that. That's a learning from going from 4G to 5G, that for sure will be there from 5G to 6G, the importance of the migration. Then I think it's always so that now 5G is launched, right? And then we have 4 or 5 years of adding functionality, and now the standardization community focus on the 5G advanced, which is a little bit 5.5 type of release, right? Where we will fix a few things that was perhaps not at place in the first release of 5G, but add the capabilities that we see that we will now need. And that will, of course, a lot of things will just carry on to be part of 6G. Things that we now solve for this new use case that we talked about will of course be part going forward to 6G. And at the same time, now the 6G research starts, and then in that process there will be great ideas coming up. And a few of these will then be applicable to the 5G. So some of the 6G ideas will actually be sort of implemented a little bit earlier on 5G. Perhaps not at its full potential, but still. And then when we move forward, hopefully these use cases are taking off, and we will start to see this gap between what these new use cases require, what people really would like to do if there were a more capable network. And then you have the increasing cost of adding on that functionality on the sort of 5G networks. And then there is sort of an investment drive then to invest in 6G in order for a more cost-efficient solution of that gap, so to say. And then, of course, at the same time, 6G should then open up all the new innovation coming on top of that platform, just as we now see all the innovation that we expect on the 5G platform. So in that sense, it is similarities between these processes. If I were to take something that I think we missed, I think when we did 4G, we missed a little bit on the energy efficiency. We had too many control signals being transmitted all the time. That thing is corrected in 5G, so that we have taken into account now. I think now when we did 5G, we were very focused on establishing low latency, and we were established on having the high reliability, etc. But we didn't really get the robustness on this, all the different, to really meet the true expectations of this more mission critical service. I think there is a gap there. And hopefully now we are adding these functionalities in the continued evolution of 5G. But perhaps 6G need to be designed in order to be even more robust and resilient. That could be one thing that we need to learn and to bring forward into the 6G research.
Okay, and Matthew, what do you think? What are some of the lessons? Like a few lessons are big things to also avoid the learnings out from the 5G rollout and design that we can carry over to the 6G world.
A few things. First of all, as mobile networks have already become an increasingly so, it's really a big part of critical infrastructure of societies everywhere. And we as a development and research community should be, let's say, more forward-looking when developing 6G to educate the public so that they are aware of what the technology really would mean. And there shouldn't be any, let's say, health risks and things like that. But so I would say that privacy, security, trust-related issues are, in my opinion, the most important that we should pay attention to.
Okay, thank you. So there's an increasing role that government plays. So these are great lessons, and increasingly today we have government playing a bigger role in supporting tech ecosystems and such. So what would you say? Let's start with Mike. What would you say is what could government do right now, government at large, right? Government can do right now to sort of support the 6G rollout and be effective? Or what can it not do to make sure that it rolls out effectively?
So I talked about the Next G Alliance previously. So this is actually an alliance that combines industry, academia, and now government membership. So I think there's certainly a contributory role of government, right, in terms of making sure that needs and requirements of government are serviced through the development of these generations of technology. But then there's a strong, I think, collaboration and advocacy that has to take place because we really need this to be an action-oriented agenda, right? Where industry and academia and government kind of line up and they're all pushing together toward a common goal. So in the case of Next G Alliance, it's North American leadership. So we should be thinking now about, what are the policies that would really create a vibrant marketplace? What are the things that we could do at a market readiness level? And how can government and the private sector work together to accomplish that? Because what we're, obviously some regions of the globe are very much government top down, government dominance, and that's obviously not the model that typically has operated in this kind of free market system. So we need to find the right balance between government helping to incentivize, identifying key policies, and the private sector then, working together with government to provide those solutions. Because we in the end, we all win together.
Thank you. And Nico, what do you think? What role do you think government could play to make sure it supports the successful rollout for 6G?
Yeah, so within the same spirit, it's important to have a proper regulation in place to support the development, implementation of the technology in the best possible way. And related to this regulation, an important aspect of this is availability of adequate spectrum. So this is, of course, for wireless technologies extremely central. And then also, especially at these early stages where research plays a very central role, there traditionally are different ways how then governments can support a better interaction between academia and industry.
Okay. And we have a few minutes left, and there's a couple more topics I want to bring up.
First of all, 6G is simply too far away to speculate about that. But what myself as a guy from academia am very pleased about is that there's increasing intensity in global collaboration and coalitions across different continents and countries, which is fantastic, and it's definitely needed. It's more important than probably ever before in our industry, since the foreseen dramatic changes that these future wireless technologies can bring to our societies, it's really unbelievable opportunity. So we need to have joint views, visions, goals, targets to make it happen. No one can make it alone. Reality. That's clear. Then this geopolitics, it's a pity that this thing is taking multiple years, but as we have seen already that many Asian countries have very strong initiatives around 6G, South Korea, Japan, of course China, but I think the rest of the world is doing a lot of activities as well at European level, in North America. So I think now it's time to have open discussions on value base and then later on technical target settings for what we want to seriously develop 6G to. And at least here in Europe, I think the discussion is ongoing and very lively.
Anyone? Yeah, please. Mike.
Yeah, I think, obviously there will be, regional competition for 6G in the same way as 5G. I think, every region is looking at ways it can promote its own regional leadership because, the fact is we do have different markets. There are different, in some parts of the globe, there are different values. There are different policies, different government needs, societal needs. So I think, at a regional level, yes, we can focus on all those things in terms of driving solutions that fit our marketplace. I think one of the good signs we see right now with 6G is we're seeing much more visibility and involvement many years in advance. I think in general, things happen relatively late in the 5G development cycle from a policy funding level. I think what we're seeing right now is government, industry, and academia kind of all seeing the value of collaborating together, 5, 8, 10 years in advance.
All right. And maybe just one final question. We have just 5 minutes left. I think it was Miko who brought up the question of sustainability and climate change. I'm wondering, what are the implications for 6G? So on one end, we get better sensors, right? On the other end, we got to, roll out these kinds of networks, roll out these networks. The new technology has, rolling out a new technology isn't always neutral here. So what are the impacts? Are there sustainability issues we want to keep in mind when we're thinking about the rollout for 6G?
Please,
Magnus.
I can start. I think we're all thinking about these things, and I think already 5G will be a key technology here, because if you're able to have information from all the sensors, if you're able to have your processes connected, it's fairly obvious when we look at the different industries and use cases that in most cases you can just be more efficient, and then you can easily save like 15% or something, and that's just doing the same thing but more efficient. And then always when you think about the sustainability, you always have these rebound effects, that we tend to do things more efficient, and then we do much more of that thing because it's so efficient, and then you don't save anything in the end from the CO2. So it's important that these efficiency gains are complemented with regulations, so we are really seeing that you are gaining efficiency, reducing CO2, and there is regulations in place, so that is an actual saving. I think that's a key aspect here, and it connects a little bit to the previous comments here as well around the importance of regulations, etc. Then I think the 6G and it will offer a possibility to have a lot of our economic growth in the digital domain. So a lot of the new values that will be created and consumed will be all digital. So if you're able to go to this sports game and have your favorite seat and etc. without being there, right? That will be a new way of engaging in sports, which will be a immersive experience, perhaps even better than the experience we have today. And then we might have transformed a lot of that value from going there in a physical way and driving your car there or whatever to a fully digital experience. So I think that we should utilize this opportunity now to make efficiency gains, avoid the rebound thing, and then invent a lot of things which are in the all digital domain, so we can still have the economic growth on top of these networks, because this is really the biggest innovation platform ever, right? There's so much things that can be done on top of this. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Excellent.
If I could just add one more comment on
Please.
Sustainability. The ICT business may not be the largest contributor to sustainability and climate change as an industry, as you line up against all the other industries, transportation, industry, energy, and so on. But I think the ICT business should be a leader, and not only in its own business, not only in the communications path, but thinking about how 6G could basically help other industry sectors in achieving sustainability goals. So I think absolutely sustainability plays a critical role in what we're thinking about in terms of 6G.
Perfect. Gentlemen, I think that's all the time that we have right now. So I'm mindful that this is the first panel where everybody has names with the same first letter. So thank you, Magnus, Mikko, Matti, and Mike, so much. This is a very insightful, and this is the kind of panel where I would encourage everybody, please keep the takeaways in mind, because this is coming, just like some of the other technologies that the forum talked about a number of years ago. So please keep them in mind, especially over the next several years. So thank you so much again for making the time to join us here today. And thank you all again for making the time.